hearts not be troubled. You just believe in God and believe also in me. Emitima jammwe tegeraliikiriranga. Mukkirize Katonda ne Yesu mumukkirize. Because we are oftentimes troubled. Death is a time of trouble, confusion. And there are many unanswered questions. Why? They are those whys. But why at this time? And you are wondering how you are going to be and to remain. And you hear such questions. On the Kedani. We are troubled. We are confused. But Jesus says, let not your hearts be troubled. Just believe in God and believe also in me. Because in my Father's house are many mansions, and if it were not so, I would have told you, I go to prepare a place for you. There is a place for each and every one of us. But do you know which place you will occupy when you go? Because even here on earth, when we are making preparations for certain functions, we reserve places for different people. And when you come in and the people will ask, who are you? If you belong to the family members are located there. Bwe tulituuka mu ggulu, buli muntu nga bamutegekedde ekifo, olowooza bakutegekeddewa? Kubanga alina ekifo kye yategekera abajeemu. Alina ekifo kye yategekera abamwagala. Nakyogerako olumu, waliwo mukwano gwange Sheikh yali abuulira n'agamba nti bwe tufa, and as you lower your casket into the tomb, mu kabuli, wabeerawo bamalayika on the side of the what? The grave. Naye ng'eriyo malayika omulala ali ku kikoomi ky'omuliro. So as they lower the casket, these angels are inquiring. Baba bakubuuza. Akati omu abuuza n'abuuza n'agamba wasaalanga. If you did not go for Juma prayers, eri malayika ow'omuliro n'ayongerako oluku. Watoolanga zaka. Bw'oba tewatoolanga, malayika n'ayongerako oluku. So those questions, just imagine. Olowooza gwe nkuuzo. We make our own firewood. Era ekyo kye kikuleetera okweraliikirira. One day, I was going to UK and we had just landed at Heathrow, and as we were going through the immigration, before me there was a lady, but she looked uncomfortable. But we are moving along in the line, and you know, as you get to the immigration, someone will say, go to that counter, go to that counter. Then because she was before me, she was ushered to go to another counter, and for me I went to another counter. Then, all of a sudden, I saw a security man coming for me and said, do you know that lady? I said, I don't know. Did you come on the same plane? I said, yes. So can you come over? Then I went. Then they asked me, do you understand the language she talks? So when she reached the immigration, she pretended that she did not know English. Then I asked her in Uganda, owulira Oluganda she shook her head n'anyeenya omutwe naye nga she boarded from Uganda and we connected at Dubai and we went to Heathrow. Now she looked at it, she didn't know Uganda. But to my surprise, by the time she reached the immigration, she had no document, no passport, no ticket, no what, except a kit where was written a telephone number. And whatever question they asked, she just presented the telephone number. Nemugamba mama, oyogera lulimi ki? Then she looked at me with eyes like saying, ndekantobe n'ebyange gwenta. But I remember seeing her in the line, she was uncomfortable. It looked as if she had forgotten something, and you know, some of us will be in the line, you are very uncomfortable. Because of your doings, because of the ways you have lived. The only thing that will save us from being troubled is to believe in God and His Son, Jesus Christ. He becomes our advocate. He will talk on our own behalf. Baba bakubuuza n'agamba wacha huyu. Just leave that. Let him pass. Tolabanga muntu ali mu buvunaanyizibwa kumubuuza, do you know this one? N'agamba simumanyi. I don't know that person. What will save us the trouble? Because he knows the future. Mama Kyemba, the Lord knows the future. Amanyi how we will continue without Kyemba. Abana, let your hearts not be troubled. Kubanga tata nga abalese, we have the Father who is our Father in heaven. He will uphold you. He will look after you. He will make a way where there is no way. He will provide it because He's our chief provider.
At the home of the chamber for the vigil. Those who don't know our tradition, our tradition that the body wants to get from has not.
Those we left behind. In Bunya, the family settled quite quickly and committed itself to distinguished public service. Over many generations, the Lubas, the Mkwadjangas, we served others. Today, we are saying farewell to a person who has brought that public service to a rather distinguished level, to an all-new level. Following into the footsteps of his father, Solomon Kisada, his brothers, David Kisada Nabeta, a former minister and civil servant, held many positions within government. A.K. Katagwa, a renowned educationist who brought up many children. R.L. Kisada, a public servant who was unfortunately killed by Idi Amin. N.J. Nabeta, a prominent businessman who mentored both Africans and Asian businessmen. Besweri Katagwa, a distinguished public servant, and finally, Elijah Kisada Mutiabule, a prominent lawyer who rose to be the Chief Justice of the Republic of Uganda. Including, of course, I forgot to mention Bishop Titi Nabeta as well. HK took public service, as I said, to a whole new level, spanning Busoga, Uganda, and the international level. At the national level, he committed and dedicated his service to both the civil service, where he rose to many levels, and on the political level, as a political leader, he offered himself to serve in many positions, often risking his life in so doing. At the international level, he's renowned for his contribution to the Rotary family. The presence of Rotary International in such large numbers at this farewell is testimony for the big humanitarian he was. We may also recall that he was on the board of the WHO board, that's the World Health Organization board as well. Perhaps of significance to HK's life is the fact that he always acknowledged that Busoga College Muiri played a prominent role in who he was. He used to say that the best of his life was when he joined Busoga College Muiri. It's therefore no doubt that, led by the Right Honorable Prime Minister Emeritus Ruhakana Rugunda, the Busoga College Muiri old boys are also here in big numbers to say farewell to him. As a family, we are grateful for the recognition HK has received. He served with humility. He served with a high level of commitment. Above all, he served with selfless sense of integrity. In fact, we used to tease him that he was the physical living embodiment of integrity. As a family, we have also learned a number of lessons from both HK and those who were before him. He taught us that your word is your bond. He taught us that we should always strive to protect our name. He taught us that we should work hard to accomplish whatever we have offered ourselves to do. Half-baked delivery is never enough. He finally taught us that integrity should always come before us. So I'd like to end by thanking a number of people. First of all, above all, we would like to thank His Excellency, the President, for his unwavering support over the period HK has been sick, for his love for the family, for the opportunity that he also gave HK to serve his country. We'd like to thank the entire government of the Republic of Uganda. You have been there. We would like to thank the Kingdom of Buganda for the love over the years. Uncle HK had a special relationship with the Kingdom. I'd like to thank the Rotary fraternity. Thank you for all that you have done. I think thank you is not enough, but I guess we will demonstrate our gratitude in a much deeper way. I'd like to thank the Mwiri Old Boys Association. I'd like to thank the people of Busoga, the city of Jinja. I'd like to thank the church leaders, the friends, all that gave up what they were doing to come and be with us today. I'd also like to thank the hospital that treated Jaja HK. I'm going to mix Jaja, Uncle, and so on because of the influence of the...
Man, we the children have been more than privileged to call Daddy, and to say it the way he would call himself, Daddy. And for me, the person I sometimes moonlighted as private personal secretary or his assistant. God gave us a rare opportunity to spend time with Dad as he went through his illness. And every day, Dad was grateful to God for the extra time he gave us. Over and over again, sometimes he would look at us and shake his head and smile and say, God has been good, God has been kind. Sometimes he would look, for example, like at me, he would say, I've lived my life, I've enjoyed myself, I've worked hard, you should live your life too. I would want to spend 24 hours a day with you all, but it would be unfair to you. You should go and work, live your lives, and enjoy. He was a very handsome man, and I'm pleased to say he was the most refined of gentlemen. Every day of our lives on earth, we hope to inch closer to being worthy of the legacy that he's left us. He paid his dues to this country and to the people. He didn't owe anyone, but he's left us all with a huge debt that we'll never be able to repay. He would tell us that he never applied for a job in his life. He didn't have to. His work and his ethics spoke for themselves. He was fiercely independent, and I guess there's no wonder where some of us picked that character from. I guess it's obvious. We should all consider ourselves so lucky to have known him in one capacity or another. But one thing is for sure, Daddy is unforgettable. Whether it was for his work, his service, his ethics, his loyalty, his humility, his classy demeanor, synonymous with only the folks of his generation, I'm sure you will understand. His generosity, his charming personality, or his signature sense of humor. Even in his final days, the most common feature around him were the bouts of laughter from everybody in the room whenever he cracked a joke or gave his signature responses. He lived, he loved, he laughed, he's left us. He's run his race, now we must work hard to live up to the name that he's left for us, his family. Our father loved to say that he was public property. His life was not his own, but belonged to this country and all of us in it. He took the words for God and my country quite literally. He understood responsibility and obligation. he fulfilled each without restraint, giving so much of himself in the process. He gave and gave and gave, whether it was in public service or in Rotary or to the wider Kisaja family. The Rotary family has always been part of our lives. We've not really known a life outside of it. He literally lived by the theme of the year he was its governor: act with integrity, serve with love, work for peace. This he lived by all his life. He would say he had everything he wanted, and he wanted for nothing. He leaves this world a man surrounded by love, a man at peace, ready to sit at the table with our Lord, the angels, his siblings, and his dearest friends. He would say that we were lucky, and indeed we were, to have a father who had touched so many lives in his lifetime, and this remains a privilege. He loved our friends, he loved our home as their home. He loved music, he loved to dance, he loved to be around happy people. He loved honesty, he hated violence, even if he was watching it in a movie on the screen. He didn't like hospitals, and in my head I would think, but why would a former minister hate them? He should be accustomed to them by now. He didn't like to be there, but it's no wonder during his illness he always wanted to go home. He hated corruption and injustice, and he did not amass wealth or crave the latest trending anything, unless it was, of course, an iPhone, which he wanted to use in constant communication with his family around the world. Family was everything to him. He loved his mother. I remember every time he had to travel, he would go to visit her to say bye, and even after she died, he would go to her grave. This was the kind of relationship I guess he was trying to establish with us. The man I literally talk to every day is no more. If he didn't pick up his phone, I would know something was wrong. During COVID, he would send us pictures of himself daily as proof of life. We will not be receiving these anymore. As I conclude, me and my father, one time were chatting, and because I would update him every time I was traveling, I had to tell him where I was going or when I was leaving. And I told him I was not going to be able to come back because the flight was cancelled. And he said, because of a technical fault, and I was irritated. Then he said, "I'm sure you know that I'm always praying for you. See you whenever we see you. It's much better to have the technical fault on the ground than at 35,000 peace." I learned that he was telling me, count your blessings.
To acknowledge the representative of His Excellency, the President of Uganda, and the representative of the Kingdom of Uganda, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, everybody, good morning. Permit me also, as the family has done, to acknowledge the presence and express our gratitude to the medical team, particularly Dr. Watia and the entire team from Eurocare, Dr. Okuku, Professor Otim, and the incredible nursing team, Haruna, Nicholas, Victor, Henry, Junior, Edward, Nakirija. The gift that you gave us was the gift of more time with Dad, and you gave us his comfort while he was with us. We cannot ever thank you enough. Dad was a storyteller, a lifelong student of human relations, politics, and history, with incredible attention to detail, with sharp wit, and with humor. God, in his wisdom, took this young man with these passions and granted him the opportunity from very early on in life to witness firsthand, from an exceptionally unique vantage point, the moments that would mark our unfolding history and complex identity as a nation. From the combination of these personal characteristics and the privilege of his life experience flowed a steady wealth of clear and profound advice throughout our lives as his children. And I wish to share today just 3 pieces of advice that Dad shared, as I add just a little bit to the rich and comforting portrait that has been presented about the character of the man we celebrate today. First, gratitude has its roots in humility. You cannot genuinely express the one unless you fully adopt the other. Second, privilege confers duty. It is every bit an undeserved excess of opportunity and can only be justified if it is used to meaningfully improve the lives of people in greatest need. Third, integrity is the single most important factor for positive transformation and relationships. So when given the opportunity to act, do the right thing and do it right. I'll expand just a little bit to share how he had taught us these 3 points. His Excellency and the government of Uganda have honored Dad most profoundly in supporting our family through our time of grief and in making the events of this week possible to celebrate his life and service. And we are deeply, deeply grateful. Dad would not have expected these honors to recognize his service because he despised entitlement. And as he constantly reminded us, he was always only serving what he had had the great fortune to have been invited to do. Dad grew and served alongside some of the most gifted minds in this country. And some of you are here today, and we are so inspired and grateful to you as well. He was well aware that his gifts were not exceptional, nor were the opportunities to continue in service guaranteed. He had to learn in order to master the information and skills demanded of every task and every office that he held. Those that would teach him the lessons that he needed were people from every walk of life, all around him. So his first lesson was humility, a respect, love, and gratitude for people and for all that we offer one another to achieve the diversity of our ambitions and obligations. That was his first lesson. On privilege and duty, Dad had the privilege of starting to work for his government straight out of Makerere University in 1962. And he would go on, as we've heard, serving in roles of increasing responsibility over nearly 60 years of public service. The importance of the moments before which he found himself were never lost on him. Independence, political strife and transition, constitutional self-determination, anchoring of governance and community participation, and of course, international representation and the careful, constant crafting of our national identity. Being part of the cohort of our national leaders that were handed the promise and vision of our nation at the moment of our independence, Dad understood that his role was first and foremost as a part custodian of that promise to Uganda. And so he served with a constant heavy sense of duty to rise in his performance, to deliver on that promise, because to him, the result of his work had to be measured in terms of the difference that it made for people like his mother and his sisters, as deserving and as gifted, but simply less fortunate. People like them that lived all across the country with just as much right to life, dignity, and all that this nation promises. His third lesson was integrity. I will end with this advice that Dad shared constantly on integrity, the one thing that influences how we live and advance together. When given the opportunity to act or make a choice, do the right thing and do it right. Dad believed unreservedly in our country, in its young people, and in our capacity to attain the highest standards in all domains of our talents as Ugandans, given genuine equality of opportunity, hard and good quality work, and good leadership. But he reminded us that the possibility to achieve this greatness as a nation rested entirely on the courage, honesty, and integrity of each of us in every role and relationship, no matter how small. The entire promise of our nation, therefore, depends on each of us embracing our duty to do the right thing wherever we are and whatever our role, and to do it right. As children, over the years and to his very last breath, it was our singular blessing and privilege to be in Dad's company, to experience his love, and to receive.
For this moment, I give glory to him for the life of my husband, Henry. I know that wherever he has gone, he's in peace. I know that all of you who have come here, you know Henry in many ways, in different capacities, and indeed, many of you have already delivered your speeches, and you've made my work easy, because I knew Henry in all those capacities. Henry the civil servant, Henry the politician, Henry the Christian, Henry a community leader, Henry the humanitarian in Rotary, Henry a friend of many, the high and the lowly, Henry the family man. Henry would go down and humble himself where it was necessary. He would be authoritative when it was the right time for it. Henry was a joker. He would cheer up people, and I think Rotarians know that very well. Whenever he was going to start a speech, he would tell everyone to stand up and clap their hands. And after that, he would say, those people were clapping for me because I made a wonderful speech. Henry was easy to please if you did the right thing in the right way at the right time. And of course, I hasten to add that many received his wrath if they violated his principles. I would talk about Henry all day long, but I'll just mention the few virtues, many of them have been mentioned, which defined the character of my husband lying before us. Integrity has been mentioned, honesty, generosity, humility, whenever Henry would drive his vehicle from home going to town, he would go waving to everyone, pedestrians, some of them very good friends of his, because he always stopped and gave them something for the day. A bicycle repairer, a kiosk attendant, all of them were his friends. Henry was a very good time manager, and I'm glad that today all of us kept time arriving here to pay our last respects to him. Henry was meticulous in everything that he did. I would like to mention that Henry was diagnosed with diabetes in 1989. But he managed it. with a lot of discipline, and it never put him down. As a Rotarian, I must say that Henry was involved in the aggressive campaign or fight against cancer. It would be a disservice to the men, especially who are here, if I didn't mention that Henry succumbed to cancer of the prostate. For a number of years, this cancer was contained, unfortunately during the COVID time. It was scary for him to go for reviews in any medical center because he feared he would contract COVID. And this made it easy for the disease to spread. Of course, it may not have been cancer itself that took him, but the issues that manifested because of it took his life. I would like at this point, I know many have mentioned it, but I would like to wholeheartedly appreciate Dr. Watia, I don't know whether he's around, and his capable team. Thank you very much, Dr. Watia. And the whole team of Eurocare. Henry decided that he would not go to any other health facility, that Eurocare will be his base, and whatever issue that arises, Dr. Watia had to find a way of contacting whoever would handle it best. All the nurses who called him Jaja, and he always gave them a smile. His personal nurses, they've been mentioned already. I thank you very much for being by my side, helping me to care for him. I'd like to appreciate also Dr. Okuku, who was his special manager for the disease. And I would like to appreciate all of you. I know that all of you are busy people. Today is a working day, but you left all your busy schedules to be here for my husband, Henry. Special appreciation goes to His Excellency the President for according my husband the official send-off. The Prime Minister, sorry, I don't want to break the protocol. The Speaker of Parliament, for allowing Henry to be taken to Parliament, and for all the parliamentarians in advance before the session comes. I appreciate the Prime Minister and all the officers who work in that office, who have been working with us to make sure that the send-off of my husband has the dignity, integrity that Henry, as Susan said, didn't really think of, because for him, it was normal life. He would never think of having such a function, a ceremony to send him off. But we appreciate whatever is being done to honor him. I would like to also appreciate the Kabaka of Uganda, his special friend, the Nabagereka who visited him in the hospital, Prince Wasajja who also visited him and supported him in a number of ways. The Rotary Fraternity, we thank you so much because you've been there for us and with us. You've supported us in many ways. The Muri Old Boys, I need not mention Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda and the Old Boys of Muri. Thank you very much for supporting us. The Madivanis, Uganda YMCA, his very close friends, Justice Wako Wambuzi, Dr. Batwala, Justice Damalirwanga, Justice Flavia Nabakos. I know you have other relationships with him, but you've been there with them, with him and with us. All the children, Alfred mentioned earlier on that all of them, all the children of his 6 brothers, he never had a word niece or nephew in his vocabulary. You are either a son or a daughter. Thank you very much for working together to ensure that my husband was able to go through his sickness with dignity and being able to work together with the President's office to send him off in such a ceremony. Henry didn't have any pain throughout his sickness. He didn't ever complain of any pain. The pain only came in the last 2 weeks. But throughout, he would say nothing about pain. And I thank God for that, because I was nursing someone who was not in pain, but at least I knew that somewhere, somehow, he had something growing in his body. The family friends in Uganda and in diaspora, I thank you for standing with us through his sickness and death. I supported Henry throughout his service. And I must say, I will miss him, but I have to let him go. I would like to mention that I received Jesus as my Savior.
Our biggest challenge was always, what will we do with PDG Kyemba? He always came on time. But he'd come into the room and say, just get me some.
Condolences to the family and the nation on the passing of Henry Kyemba. Henry was too large a titan to confine his life story to a single book, a chapter, let alone a brief condolence message. His life and his times straddle the entire landscape of Uganda's post-independence history. Henry did not just live in that span of history, he helped make a large part of that history. Henry Kyemba is the very personification and embodiment of the complex chronicles that make the modern state of Uganda. Henry was there at the birth of the nation in October 1962. He was there during the painful birth pangs of 1966. and the constitutional hiccups of 1967. He was present during the stunning shock of Singapore, which ran in parallel to the debacle of the 1971 coup d'etat, whose harrowing twists and turns ushered into the national psyche the floodgates of instability, insurrection, and insufferable bloodlettings, which Henry himself later ably and effectively and graphically described in his own book, The State of Blood. He was a true patriot and a faithful nationalist. After Singapore and the coup, Henry immediately returned home to Uganda, putting loyalty to country above fidelity to his deposed boss, who headed the political exile outside Uganda. Back in Uganda, Henry persevered in serving the country at its darkest hours. He refused to cave in and let go until the going became utterly intolerable. Only upon the horrid slaughter of his cabinet colleagues and the brazen martyrdom of a whore archbishop of the Church of Uganda did Henry reluctantly seek refuge outside his beloved motherland, there to advance the struggle by exposing to the world at large the diabolical ills and festering wounds of a barbaric dictatorship. Later in his years of graying eminence, Henry continued to serve his country by constantly dispensing the values and virtues of an elder statesman. He immersed himself to the hilt in the noble work of the Elders Forum of Uganda, TEFU. His contributions to TEFU have been invaluable and stellar. He was the heart and soul of TEFU. His was the voice of reason, the steady hand of the skilled technocrat, the moderating tongue of the seasoned diplomat, and the keen ear of the wise, all springing from a heart of abounding love. By coincidence or by divine design, Henry has remained in service to the public to the very last, breathing his last breath to this.
I want to thank Church for according us this opportunity to celebrate our hero. Allow me to, on behalf of District 9213 and on behalf of all the Oratorian District 9213 and the whole of Uganda, I would like to take this opportunity to convey my condolences to the bereaved family and say that Chitalo, Chitalo nnyo, Chitalo nnyo. I don't want to repeat the words which my brother said, Francisco, but I want to thank God for the gift of life of Henry. Henry is our hero. Henry lived his life to the fullest. He lived a scandal-free life. You heard that he served 3 governments, but he was a clean man. I remember when we were in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, and I had this conference, and with the current Katikiro of Uganda, Charles Peter Mayiga, he said his heart is bleeding, seeing young people coming into office and they want to amass wealth within a fortnight. Those were his words. And he told us that when he was in office, he never lived beyond his salary. So I want to, as we mourn, of course, for us we are celebrating his life, a life well lived. So as we celebrate his life, I want us to emulate him, especially the young people, for the values he stood for, of being honesty, of integrity. So let us emulate him, the fact that this country has peace. We want to thank him so much for the contribution he has made to the government of Uganda, and of course in Rotary, he has been at the forefront of fighting for humanity, of eradicating poverty